Welcome to the show. It's your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. And I'm super excited to be here because obviously we're going to have a very interesting conversation with regards to the very latest that is currently happening in the United Kingdom. Now, obviously, something that we really need to talk about right now is about the climate, right? And that is a main focus because recently the IPCC report was released and we know how exactly things change. And we were also informed that we were basically on the verge of collapse, right? Essentially, if we didn't take the steps that the IPCC report is now recommending, which is essentially cutting down so much of the emissions that we give out to the environment, we could potentially destroy the entire planet. And if anything, the reason forest fires, the flash floods, and the heat waves have been a testimony to the fact that climate change is actually destroying the planet, and that is also our fault because we are the ones that have contributed to climate change. All right. So if you want to share your thoughts, if you want to share your opinions on this conversation, please do go ahead. Text me on 078 Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are as well. All right, because it's very important for you to share your thoughts and opinions on this climate crisis, because this is something that is all of our faults, right? We were the ones that destroyed the planet. We were the ones that brought so much of chaos to our planet. So now it is actually our duty to undo all of the things that we have done. All right, so don't actually forget to get in touch with me. Now, something else that you can actually do is to go ahead and follow us on our socials. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can actually subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. So all of the videos that we do, all of the topics that we talk about, that is all available on YouTube. And all you need to do is just press that one button and then you can listen to all of our thoughts and opinions along with your thoughts and opinions as well, because that's what we do here at Relax Radio. We value your opinion, we value your thoughts. You are always number one here on Relax Radio. So please don't be scared to text, call, get in touch with us, follow us on our socials, and to download our app, which is available on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store as well. All right. And now let's actually head into our conversation because we're going to be talking about how exactly the United Kingdom is polluting more than actually preserving. All right. Now, a recent analysis that was conducted on the spring budget actually showed that the UK government is actually spending many times more on measures that will increase greenhouse gas emissions in comparison to policies that will actually tackle the climate crisis, right? And this is just analysis on the spring budget. All right. So basically, only 145 million in the March 2021 budget was devoted to environmental spending, and most of it was actually just devoted to the post-Brexit emissions trading scheme for industry, which was also stated by an analysis that was done by the charity WWF. All right, and the truth is, the cost of tax breaks to companies to encourage investment came to actually more than 34 billion. All right, so if you're basically going to have tax breaks of 34 billion, but you're only going to spend 145 million on the climate, on tackling climate crisis, but majority of that as well you're just going to spend on post Brexit, then that just goes to show how we're in fact spending more money to destroy the environment than protect it, right? And ironically, it was Alok Sharma, who happens to be, the UK's climate minister, who basically said we need to take certain steps. We need to take drastic measures to change our planet, to change the course of our planet. Because if we don't take these drastic steps, what we're doing is we're actually contributing to the destruction of our planet. And, after having said that as well, you're still going to see our government spending so much more money on policies that essentially destroy the planet than actually help it. All right. Now, these tax breaks of about 34 billion actually comes about while maintaining the fuel duty freeze, right? Which has basically been there for the 11th consecutive year, and it's actually been costing about 4.5 billion in lost revenues. All right, so that is what is currently happening. And if you actually think about it, it's actually quite sad as well, because we're a country that could actually make some change. We're a country that could actually make sure that we bring about some change and we protect our planet. However, we're not actually doing that. And even the government's or rather, we've had this government's commitment to net zero emissions, right? And these tensions over the government's commitment to net zero emissions and the potential cost of policies to meet the target are said to be one of the chief bones of contention between the Prime Minister and the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, right? And that is in fact, the reason that or rather, they've been having a blazing row recently, which we all know about. But these happen to be one of the biggest points of contention between the two, right? And in all, WWF actually found that measures in the 2021 budget would actually increase emissions that were worth about 40 billion. Okay, and the findings actually come from a new budget tagging tool that was developed by the charity to help with help from Vivid Economics, which basically measures the impact of policy decisions that affect the environment. All right, and this is just to make sure that we make sure that the conversations, the policy decisions that we have is to protect the environment. So now, in that first part of it of itself, you can understand that the government is actually spending so much more to harm the environment and not actually to protect it. All right, and make sure you stay tuned because we're going to head into a small break, and after that we will be back to discuss all of this. But obviously, until then, make sure that you Welcome back to the show. It is your girl Sarah right here on Relax Radio. And I'm super excited to be here because it's, getting close to the end of this show. But don't worry, because the time here in the United Kingdom is in fact 8:24 a.m. here in London. And, I still have a lot more left to share with you with regard to, the climate crisis, with regard to everything that is happening in the world. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you stay tuned. All right. And don't forget to, share your thoughts and opinions with me. You can text me, call me on 078 Share your thoughts, share your opinions, because that will be absolutely amazing as well. Okay. And now, before we head into the conversation, I want to very quickly remind you that you can, in fact, go follow us on our socials. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. That way, you can check out all of the things that we've spoken about in the past few months and make sure you're educated and updated on it as well. All right. So don't actually forget to do that. Now, something else that you can actually do is to, go download an app which is available for free on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. You can actually make sure that you're always informed and you're always updated about the very latest that happens all over the United Kingdom. And that means you can also listen in from anywhere in the world at any time of the day. All right. So now let's actually head back into our conversation. Now, we're talking about how the UK is actually polluting more than preserving, how we're spending much, much more on policies that pollute the environment, that essentially increase carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions, in comparison to actually making sure that, in comparison to making sure that they actually spend on policies that might help the environment. And this is one of the biggest problems that we have here in the United Kingdom as well. All right. So actually, don't forget to share your thoughts and opinions with me on this. And obviously, I want to know what you're thinking as well. Because to be quite honest with you, the truth of the matter is that recently the IPCC report was released, and if you haven't read it, you should. This is why you should go read it. You will really understand how much of trouble that we are in if we don't, really pick up our boots, I guess, and get our act together. We're not going to be able to save this planet, right? So this is in fact just the truth is, all of these warnings that scientists have given us over the decades, we've actually managed to ignore them, because more often than not, we tend to just be like, oh, you know what, it's probably going to take much longer than that, or I'm not even going to be alive when it finally happens, so why should I do anything about it? Which is probably the most terrible attitude to have with regard to the climate, right? Sure, you might not be there when it happens, but your children will, your children's children will, right? So if you don't care about your children's children or your children, then that just says a lot about you. And I know, you care about your children and their families, so obviously it's important that then for us to get together and take the necessary steps that we need to, because if not, we're all actually going to die from the climate crisis. All right. Now, Isabella O'Dood, who happens to be the head of the climate at WWF, said that the spring budget actually showed a great disconnect between the government's rhetoric and the reality of what it's actually doing, right? If anything, we can see how our government says one thing but does the complete opposite, right? And we even have people like Alok Sharma, who was considered the reason as to making COP26 successful. And we have people like him who are always, saying, look, the climate change is going to be a catastrophe if we don't fix the problem. We need to make sure we fix the problem. But even after saying all of that, he still refuses to condemn the new oil fields that are going to be, shelled, or basically how the new oil fields in Shetland are actually going to create much, much more greenhouse gas emissions, right? So that, I guess, in a way, that's just the hypocrisy of our government. That's just the hypocrisy of our policies, right? Now, something else that Isabella had to say is that the ambition on emissions cutting targets is great, but what we actually really need to see is policies that actually deliver these, right? It's very easy for you to say, look, we care about the environment, sure, we want you to do this, we want you to do that. However, if you're not actually going to do anything about it, if you're not actually going to deliver on all of those things that you said with your policies, then that just goes to show how inefficient that you are, right? And she also said that the landmark report from the IPCC, which was published on Monday, has actually found that the world was heading for more than 1.5 degrees Celsius of global heating within the next 2 decades, right? So within the next 20 years, we're actually going to have much warmer climates. It's going to be much, much worse than this, right? So that in itself shows how urgent it is for our ministers to act. They really need to do something about it, right? And now the United Kingdom will actually host vital United Nations climate talks called COP26 this November in Glasgow, and that is actually aimed at bringing all countries together with new national commitments to cut emissions in line with ambition of all countries together of holding they basically want to get back the Paris Agreement of holding temperature rises to 100, or rather 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, right? And that is what is currently happening. So it's important to keep that in mind as well, because if not, we're actually going to head into the worst climate disaster that we have possibly seen in our entire lifetime, right? And something else she said is that the United Kingdom government actually has to play its part by keeping every climate promise it has made, all right? And they need to make sure that there are separate estimates that showed that the United Kingdom could actually benefit to the tune of about 90 billion in the form of new jobs, health benefits, and even infrastructure if the government took a green approach to investment and spending. So that is what that's about. But make sure you stay tuned, because I will be back in a few more minutes to talk to you about, the age of extinction, how rewilding could actually help to create more jobs. So until then, make sure that you stay tuned, because right now we're going to head into a small break, and after that we will be back to discuss all of this.
The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday. And what you need is what's going to happen tomorrow. What am I saving or investing for? Why am I doing it? When will I need the money?